The cold steel of the chair bit into Anna Devane's spine, a sharp, grounding sensation in a world that was otherwise spinning out of control. Her eyelids fluttered, heavy as lead curtains, fighting the lingering fog of the chloroform. The air smelled sterile antiseptic and ozone far removed from the salty tang of the Port Charles pier where she had been just moments, or perhaps days, ago. She tried to move her hands, but the metallic clink of restraints confirmed her worst fears. She was bound. "Welcome back, my dear Anna." The voice seemed to emanate from the walls themselves, a surround sound nightmare that chilled her blood. It was a voice she had heard in her nightmares for decades, cultured, mocking, and dripping with obsession. "Faison," she rasped, her throat dry. "You're dead. Jason shot you. I saw the files." Death is such a pedestrian concept for men of my intellect. The voice boomed, followed by a low, distorted chuckle that vibrated through the floorboards. "Did you really think a simple bullet could end the legacy of Caesar Faison? You, of all people, should know better. You are the only one who truly understands my brilliance." Anna yanked at the cuffs, the adrenaline finally burning through the sedative. She scanned the room. It was a windowless box of gray concrete and brushed steel, illuminated by harsh fluorescent strips. To her right, a heavy blast door. To her left, a pane of reinforced glass looking into an adjacent holding cell. Her gaze locked onto the figure in the next room. A man lay on a cot, curled in a fetal position, his breathing shallow and ragged. He wore gray prison-issue scrubs, his hair matted and overgrown, but the profile was unmistakable to a woman who had spent years hunting criminals and protecting her city. The curve of the jaw, the brow. "Morgan," she whispered, the name catching in her throat. The figure stirred. He groaned, rolling onto his back, and Anna gasped. It was him, older, gaunter, with hollowed-out eyes that had seen too much darkness. But it was undeniably Morgan Corinthos, the boy who had died in a car bomb years ago. The tragedy that had nearly destroyed Sonny and Carly. "Morgan," she shouted, her voice echoing off the glass. "Can you hear me?" Morgan blinked, his eyes unfocused. He pushed himself up on trembling arms, looking around with the panic of a trapped animal. When his eyes finally found Anna, there was no recognition, only fear. No more tests," he mumbled, his voice a cracked ruin. I don't know the code. Please, Morgan, it's Anna. Anna Devane," she pressed, leaning as close to the glass as her restraints allowed. "Look at me. You're not dead. You're in Port Charles, or somewhere near it. We're going to get out of here." The sound of hydraulic locks hissing open silenced them both. The blast door to Anna's cell slid aside, revealing a figure silhouetted by the blinding white light of the corridor. Caesar Faison stepped into the room. He looked different, scarred, perhaps, and moving with a slight mechanical stiffness, but the madness in his eyes was untouched by time. He wore a pristine white lab coat over a dark suit, a jarring image of medical authority. A touching reunion, Faison sneered, walking past Anna to tap a gloved finger against the glass separating her from Morgan. "Subject 42 has been resilient, far more than I anticipated. The Corinthos bloodline is stubborn, I'll give it that." "You sick bastard," Anna spat, struggling against the cuffs. "He was a child. You let his family believe he was blown to pieces." "Why?" Faison turned to her, his smile widening. "Because I needed a blank slate, Anna. And who better than a volatile young man the world had already mourned? He was the perfect candidate for the Beta Protocol." He pulled a remote from his pocket and pressed a button. The wall behind him shimmered, turning into a massive digital display. Blueprints and schematics flooded the screen, images of neural pathways, DNA helixes, and terrifyingly, faces. Dozens of faces. "Cloning is an inelegant art," Faison lectured, pacing the small room. "Biological copies are prone to degradation. But mind control, rewriting the neural architecture to create a perfect, obedient soldier within an existing host. That is the future." Morgan was the prototype, a test of endurance. Anna felt a cold knot of dread tighten in her stomach. "You're brainwashing him. I am improving him," Faison corrected. "And now I am ready for the masterwork. You, Anna, you have always been the goal. Imagine an Anna Devane who serves only me, who uses her brilliance, her combat skills, her WSB training to dismantle the WSB from the inside, to bring poor Charles to its knees not with a bomb, but with a whisper." He leaned in close, his breath smelling of peppermint and decay. "I don't just want to possess you, Anna. I want to be you. I want to control every thought that fires in that magnificent brain." "Go to hell," she growled. "We are already there." He laughed. He pressed another button, and the restraints on her chair clicked open. "But I enjoy the chase. Run, Anna. Let's see if your mind is still as sharp as I remember, or if you'll break like the boy." Faison turned and walked out, the door remaining open. It was a test. A game. Anna didn't hesitate. She sprang from the chair, her muscles screaming in protest, and rushed to the control panel near the glass partition. It was a complex biometric lock, but Faison in his arrogance had left the maintenance override active. Her fingers flew across the keypad, recalling codes from old WSB manuals she hadn't thought of in years. Access granted. The glass partition slid open. Anna rushed into the next cell, falling to her knees beside Morgan. "Morgan, we have to move," she said urgently, grabbing his shoulders. He flinched violently, his eyes squeezing shut. "He's in my head," Morgan whimpered, clutching his temples. "The clicking sound. He makes the clicking sound and then the pain comes. Listen to my voice," Anna commanded, using the tone she reserved for terrified assets in the field. "Focus on me. I am real. The pain is a lie he put there. You are Morgan Corinthos. Your father is Sonny. Your mother is Carly. They love you. You survived the explosion, and you are going to survive this." Morgan looked up, a flicker of clarity piercing the fog of trauma. "Mom, we're going to take you to her," Anna promised. "But you have to stand up. Can you fight?" Morgan looked at his hands scarred and trembling, then back at Anna. A shadow of the old Morgan, the impulsive fighter, darkened his eyes. I want to kill him." "Good," Anna said grimly. "Hold onto that." They moved into the corridor. The facility was a labyrinth of stainless steel and blinding white lights. It felt less like a prison and more like a hospital from a horror movie. The air hummed with the sound of massive servers' cooling fans. "We need evidence," Anna whispered as they flattened themselves against a wall to avoid a sweeping security camera. "If we leave without proof, he'll just disappear again. We need to know what he's really doing." "The server room," Morgan rasped. He pointed a shaking finger down the left hallway. "They took me there for mapping. It's where the central brain is." They moved with silent precision. Anna took the lead, her senses on high alert. Every shadow looked like Faison, every sound was a potential ambush. Morgan followed, his movements jerky but determined. He was fighting a war inside his own skull, wincing occasionally as if hearing a high-pitched frequency Anna couldn't detect. They reached a set of double doors marked authorized personnel only. Anna bypassed the lock, and they slipped inside. The room was vast, dominated by rows of towering server banks bathing the space in an eerie blue glow. But it was what lined the walls that made Anna stop dead in her tracks. Tanks! Dozens of cylindrical glass tanks filled with amber liquid. Inside them were people. My God, Anna breathed. They weren't just random victims. She recognized a local judge, a prominent doctor from General Hospital, a WSB field director. They appeared to be in suspended animation, wires trailing from their skulls to the servers above. "He's not just making soldiers," Morgan said, his voice trembling with horror. He stared at a tank containing a man who looked exactly like the Port Charles district attorney. "He's replacing them." Anna moved closer to a console. "Doppelgangers. He's kidnapping key figures, mapping their brains, and programming." "What? Clones? Or surgically altered lookalikes?" She began typing furiously at the terminal, downloading the encrypted files to a drive she had swiped from a guard station earlier. The data scrolled past lists of names, dates, and a master plan labeled Project Mirror Image. He wants to control the city. Anna realized the scale of the conspiracy hitting her like a physical blow. The police, the courts, the hospital. If he replaces these people with his puppets, Faison becomes the de facto ruler of Port Charles. He could dismantle the mob, the WSB, everything, without firing a shot. We have to burn it, Morgan said, his eyes wild. He grabbed a heavy wrench from a nearby workbench. Burn it all down. No. Anna caught his arm. We need the data. If we destroy it now, we lose the proof of who has already been switched. We need to save the real ones. Suddenly, the blue lights turned a violent red. A siren wailed, piercing the silence. Subject 40 to unauthorized access, a computerized voice blared. He knows. Morgan panicked. He grabbed his head again. He's doing it. He's activating the protocol. Morgan dropped to his knees, screaming, "Get out of my head! Get out!" Anna grabbed him, shaking him hard. "Morgan! Fight it! Look at me! Kill her!" Morgan choked out, his eyes rolling back. "Command! Kill! Anna Devane!" He lunged at her. Anna dodged his clumsy strike, her heart breaking. He was strong, fueled by hysterical strength and Faison's conditioning. He swung the wrench, smashing it into the server bank behind her, sending sparks showering down. "Morgan, I don't want to hurt you," she shouted, blocking a punch and twisting his arm behind his back. "There is no Morgan." Faison's voice boomed over the intercom. "Only the soldier. Finish her." Morgan roared, breaking Anna's grip and shoving her backward. She hit the railing hard, the wind knocked out of her. He loomed over her, the wrench raised high. "Morgan," she gasped, looking up into his tortured eyes. "Think of Kiki. Think of your son. Think of the life you lost. Don't let him take the rest of it." The wrench wavered. Morgan's face contorted in agony. Tears streamed down his cheeks, mixing with the grime. I, he screamed, a primal sound of defiance, and slammed the wrench down not on Anna, but into the floor beside her head. He collapsed, sobbing. "Help me, please." Anna scrambled up, pulling him to his feet. "I've got you. We're leaving. Now." She grabbed the data drive and they ran. The facility was waking up. Heavily armed guards wearing masks that made their faces blank and featureless poured into the corridor. "This way," Anna directed, spotting a ventilation shaft she had noted on the schematics earlier. They fought their way through the hallways. Anna moved with lethal grace, using the environment to disarm and incapacitate the guards. Morgan, fueled by desperation, fought like a brawler, using his fists and rage to clear a path. They burst through a rear exit, spilling out into the cool night air. They were on an island Iraqi, desolate outcrop surrounded by dark, churning water. In the distance, the lights of Port Charles twinkled like a cruel mirage. There, Anna pointed to a sleek speedboat docked at a private pier. Faison emerged onto the landing platform above them, flanked by his army, a dozen blank-faced soldiers who moved in perfect unison. "You cannot escape your destiny." "Anna," Faison bellowed, the wind whipping his white coat around him like a shroud. "You have the evidence, yes, but do you have the will to use it? To destroy the lives of those who have already been replaced. Their families won't believe you. They will call you mad. Just like me. I'm nothing like you, Faison." Anna shouted back, helping Morgan into the boat. She fired the engine, the roar drowning out the wind. "I fight for the truth, and I'm coming back for you. Count on it. I look forward to it." Faison laughed, spreading his arms wide as if to embrace the chaos. "Let the game begin." Anna gunned the throttle. The boat surged forward, cutting through the black waves. She didn't look back at the island of horrors. She looked at Morgan, who was slumped against the dashboard, clutching the drive to his chest like a lifeline. "We made it," he whispered, staring at the distant city lights. I'm really alive." "You are," Anna said, her hand resting on his shoulder. She looked at the drive, then at the city she had sworn to protect. The evidence in her pocket was a bomb that would blow Port Charles apart, exposing a rot that went deeper than she could have imagined. Friends, colleagues, leaders, anyone could be a pawn of Phazon. But as the salt spray hit her face, Anna Devane felt a cold resolve settle over her. Phazon had made a mistake. He thought he was hunting her. He didn't realize that he had just armed the most dangerous woman in the world. "We have work to do," she said, steering the boat toward the harbor lights. Morgan nodded, a steely glint returning to his eyes. "Let's go home." The boat disappeared into the darkness, racing toward a dawn that would bring a reckoning Port Charles would never forget. The air in the Quartermain mansion was thick enough to choke on, scented heavily with expensive lilies and the underlying, metallic tang of impending disaster. In the grand parlor, transformed into a makeshift chapel for the occasion, the elite of Port Charles gathered in hushed, uneasy clusters. They were there to witness the union of Drew Kane and Willow Tate, a pairing that had already torn the Quartermain family down the middle. Michael Corinthos stood in the shadow of the grand staircase, his tuxedo fitting him like a suit of armor. He wasn't sitting in the front row. He wasn't even sitting. He leaned against the dark mahogany banister, a glass of untouched scotch in his hand, his eyes cold and predatory as they scanned the room. To anyone else, Michael might have looked like the grieving ex-husband, a man defeated by the charismatic, if increasingly erratic, Drew Kane. But Michael wasn't defeated. He was waiting. He watched Nina Reeves fluttering near the front of the room, adjusting the floral arrangements with a manic energy that betrayed her composure. She looked radiant in emerald green, but her smile was too wide, her eyes darting nervously toward the entrance where Willow was set to appear. Nina was the mother of the bride, the architect of this happy ending, and, Michael suspected, the keeper of a secret so volatile it could level the entire city. "You look like you're planning a funeral, not attending a wedding," a voice murmured beside him. Michael didn't turn. He knew the rhythm of Spinelli's footsteps. Depending on how the next R goes, it might be both. Spinelli adjusted his glasses, looking uncharacteristically somber. He slipped a small, encrypted tablet into Michael's hand, shielding the exchange with his body. "It is done, stone cold. The jackal has burrowed through the firewalls of General Hospital's administration server." The digital breadcrumbs were surprisingly easy to follow once we knew where to look. Michael's grip tightened on the tablet. "And it is as you suspected," Spinelli whispered, his voice dropping to a harsh hiss. "The timestamp on the narcotic dispensing log was altered. The user ID was swapped. The original entry belongs to Willow Tate. The edited entry assigns the fatal dosage to Dr. Portia Robinson." Michael felt a surge of adrenaline, cold and sharp. "And the alibi? Fabricated," Spinelli confirmed. "Security footage from the Metro Court, which Nina claimed showed her and Willow having tea at the time of the patient's death, is a deep fake, a high-quality one, likely purchased from the dark web. But the shadows don't align with the time of day. Willow wasn't at tea. She was on the 10th floor of GH, making a mistake that killed a man." Michael looked at the tablet, the glowing screen reflecting in his dark eyes. The evidence was undeniable. Willow, distracted and spiraling in her obsession with Drew, had administered a lethal dose of sedative to a VIP patient 2 weeks ago. When the patient flatlined, Nina had stepped in not to comfort her daughter, but to cover the crime. She had hacked the system, framed Portia Robinson, who was currently suspended and facing a medical board inquiry, and created a digital ghost to keep Willow safe. "Thank you, Spinelli," Michael said softly. "Go. You don't want to be in the blast radius." As the wedding march began to play, a mournful, string-heavy rendition that felt entirely inappropriate, the guests turned toward the aisle. Willow appeared. She looked fragile, almost breakable, in a gown of cascading lace. Her eyes were wide, glassy, fixed on Drew, as if he were the only thing tethering her to the earth. She didn't look like a bride. She looked like a fugitive hiding in plain sight. Drew stood at the altar, flashing that winning, media-ready smile. He looked the part of the savior, the man who had rescued Willow from the clutches of the Corinthos family. But Michael knew better. Drew was just another enabler in a long line of them. Michael downed his scotch in one burn, set the glass on a side table, and began to move. The ceremony was halfway through the vows when the tension finally snapped. "I, Drew, take you. Willow, stop." The word wasn't shouted, but it carried across the room with the force of a gunshot. The silence that followed was instant and absolute. Every head turned. Michael walked down the center aisle, his footsteps echoing on the hardwood. He held the tablet loosely at his side, his face a mask of terrifying calm. "Michael," Drew barked, his smile vanishing. "Get out. If you think you can ruin this day." "I'm not here to ruin the day, Drew," Michael said, his voice smooth, devoid of emotion. "I'm here to save Portia Robinson's life." A ripple of confusion went through the crowd. Near the front, Nina froze, her face drained of color, the emerald dress suddenly looking stark against her pale skin. "What are you talking about?" Willow whispered, her voice trembling. She looked from Michael to Nina, panic flaring in her eyes. "Portia is currently sitting in a police station, answering questions about a patient death she didn't cause," Michael said, stopping a few feet from the altar. He turned to the guests, addressing them as much as the couple. "Everyone thinks it was a tragic error by an overworked chief of staff. But it wasn't." He lifted the tablet. With a few taps, he cast the screen onto the large monitors that had been set up to display a slideshow of the couple's romance. Instead of photos of Drew and Willow on the beach, the screen filled with lines of code, security logs, and a side-by-side comparison of video footage. "This," Michael pointed to the left monitor, "is the original log from the drug dispensary. To 15 p.m. User, Willow Tate." A gasp went through the room. Willow swayed, gripping Drew's arm for support. "And this," Michael pointed to the right, "is the edited log, changed 3 hours later. User, Portia Robinson." The change was made from an IP address registered to a private server at the Crimson offices. Michael turned his gaze slowly, deliberately, to Nina. "Nina," Michael said, his voice dropping an octave, "would you like to explain why you framed an innocent doctor to protect your daughter?" "No," Nina screamed, rushing forward. "That's a lie. Michael is lying. He's trying to destroy us. The metadata doesn't lie." "Nina," Michael countered, his voice rising over hers, "and neither does the security footage you tried to fake." Spinelli analyzed the shadows. "You weren't at the Metro Court. You were in the server room." He tapped the screen again. A video played not the fake T-date, but a grainy clip from the hospital corridor. It showed Willow, disheveled and weeping, rushing out of the patient's room at 17 p.m. Moments later, Nina arrived, ushered her away, and then entered the administrative office. "Willow killed that patient," Michael said, the words hanging heavy in the air. "It was negligence, maybe, an accident. But you made it a crime when you covered it up and pinned it on Portia." Willow let out a strangled sob, her knees buckling. Drew caught her, but his grip wasn't comforting anymore. It was rigid. He looked down at the woman he was about to marry, his expression shifting from confusion to horror. "Willow?" Drew asked, his voice rough. "Is this true?" Willow looked up at him, tears streaming down her face, ruining her perfect makeup. She opened her mouth to deny it, to spin another web, but the evidence was looming over them, glowing on the giant screens. She looked at Nina, who was now sobbing into her hands, and the fight went out of her. I didn't mean to," Willow whispered. "I was so tired, Drew. I was so stressed about the trial, about us. I just grabbed the wrong vial. I didn't mean for him to die." The admission hit the room like a physical blow. "And you let Portia take the blame?" Drew asked, stepping back from her as if she were contagious. "You let a woman lose her career, her reputation, to save yourself." "Nina said she could fix it," Willow cried, reaching for him. "She said she would handle it. She said we had to protect our future by destroying someone else's." Michael interjected, his voice cutting like a knife. "Portia has a daughter, Willow, just like you have children. You were willing to let Trina's mother go to prison just so you could play the blushing bride." Nina lunged toward Michael, her face twisted in a mask of fury and grief. "You monster! You did this! You couldn't just let her be happy. You had to dig. I had to find the truth, Michael said, not flinching as Dante Falconeri, who was attending as a guest but was now very much on duty, stepped forward to intercept Nina. Portia is innocent, and now everyone knows it. Dante placed a hand on Nina's arm. Nina Reeves, I'm going to need you to come down to the station. You too, Willow. No, Willow shrieked, clutching her bouquet until the stem snapped. We're getting married. Drew, please. She turned to Drew, her eyes pleading, desperate. Baby, please. Tell them. We can fix this. We have money. We have lawyers. Drew looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in months. He saw the desperation, the selfishness, the willingness to burn the world down to save her own skin. The illusion of Willow as the saintly, persecuted victim shattered. I can't fix this, Willow, Drew said, his voice hollow. He pulled the white rose boutonniere from his lapel and dropped it onto the floor. And I don't want to. Drew, Willow wailed as Dante gently but firmly took her arm. The wedding is over, Drew announced to the stunned room. He turned his back on the altar, his shoulders slumped, looking suddenly old and defeated. As the chaos erupted, reporters shouting questions, guests scrambling for their phones, Nina screaming obscenities at Michael. Michael stood still in the center of the storm. He watched as Willow was led away in handcuffs, her white dress stark against the dark uniforms of the police officers who had arrived as backup. He watched Nina being read her rights, her face a ruin of mascara and tears. He felt a dark, cold satisfaction settle in his chest. He had won. He had exposed the rot at the heart of this alliance. He had cleared Portia's name. But as he watched Willow, the mother of his children, being shoved into the back of a squad car through the open front doors, the victory tasted like ash. He saw the devastation on Drew's face, a mirror of the pain Michael had felt months ago. There was no joy in this, only the grim certainty that justice had been done, and the knowledge that the fallout would leave scars on everyone, especially the children waiting at home. Michael turned away from the wreckage of the wedding and walked toward the exit, the tablet still heavy in his hand. The truth was out. The war was over. But as he stepped into the cool night air, he knew the haunting was just beginning.